Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl. We are talking about the book Hunting Discomfort by Sterling Hawkins. And nope, you can't see it. It's weird with this virtual background. But either way, we are at chapter 2. We're starting on page 15. Is that the page? Yeah. Okay. Page 15, chapter 2, Discomfort Facing Reality. But before we get going with that, I'm going to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. And then, Catherine, if you want to read, that'll be awesome. Jump out, guys.
Hey, it's Jason Roberts from Tampa, Florida.
Dan Sisek in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Kenneth Pettingill, Gore, Maine.
Discomfort number 1, facing reality. It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. Henry David Thoreau. Throughout the course of our lives, we are bombarded by unwelcome realities, be it a job loss, breakup, business failure, health crisis, or pandemic. Reality throws some very uncomfortable punches from time to time. Learning how to navigate in a world that is often unpredictable is integral to success. Just because tomorrow is inherently unknowable, we don't have to resign ourselves to a life of being blindsided or being lost when predictions fail. We are hunters now, and hunters don't wander around lost and waiting to be pounced on, at least not any that I've ever heard of. Besides, not all of reality is outside of our control. How we perceive our reality lies entirely within our domain and has tremendous impact on all our results. That's why the first discomfort we will be exploring is reality and how you see it. Relative reality, our faulty and limiting beliefs. The dress that blew up the internet. In 2015, a washed-out photo of a dress went viral when viewers couldn't agree on whether the gown was blue with black lace or white with gold lace. Over 11 million tweets were exchanged as people around the globe vehemently argued about what they saw with their own eyes. No matter what side of the dress debate you were on, the dress was a specific color. In reality, it was blue and black, a verifiable fact, confirmed by the manufacturer. The truth about the dress was the truth about the dress. If only it were always so easy to determine what is true in our reality, because here's another fact. Reality is a thing, even though we may not always see it accurately. That's why things can be measured, observed, and tested are easier to agree upon. Sadly, most of reality is more nuanced and complex than a dress color. Despite this, we spend most of our lives assuming our singular perspective on reality is obvious and immutable. But what if the incredible market opportunity you've discovered, person you've hired, or reason your business is struggling is actually the blue and black dress? In other words, you're out of touch with reality. How would you even know? With the dress, it's easy. You can look up the color. Most situations we encounter are far more convoluted. What we're missing is an internet meme showing us perceptions different from ours and highlighting where we might have a faulty view. Things that haven't been proven or discovered yet are even more difficult to determine with any certainty. As Tufts University psychology professor Raymond Nickerson notes in his paper on confirmation bias, psychological literature seems to support that when trying to imagine something that doesn't exist or hasn't been done, we fall back on our pre-existing beliefs, expectations, or a hypothesis in hand to guide our thinking. Makes perfect sense to do so, but it means we are drawing only from the realm of what we already know is possible. In other words, from our limiting beliefs. Since all results in our lives flow from our actions, and our actions are driven by how we see ourselves in the world, we must identify our faulty and limiting beliefs if we hope to expand. Let's take a closer look at how beliefs and perspectives work. The run that changed reality. It was the early 1950s, and the record for the all-time fastest mile run stood at 4.1 minutes. This record had been unbroken for nearly a decade. And according to the world of sport medicine at the time, that's the way it was going to stay. Humans, it was believed, had reached their physical and biological limitation of speed. Roger Bannister was a gifted runner from England. He had great success on his Oxford University team, but when his opportunity came to compete in the 1952 Olympics, he didn't even medal. He was devastated and considered giving up running forever. Instead, he decided to expand his understanding of what he could achieve in his sport. He decided to try to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Despite the popular belief that it simply wasn't possible, Bannister believed it was. Several months later, Bannister took his position at the starting line of his record attempt race along with 5 others. It was a cold, wet, windy day, the antithesis of good conditions, but it was time to put his new belief into action. The lead was traded several times, but in the last lap, Bannister pulled ahead and won the race, collapsing with exhaustion at the finish line. The race announcer began to call out the time. 3 minutes, and the crowd roared to life. They had just witnessed the impossible becoming the possible. Roger had run a mile in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. Roger Bannister forever transformed beliefs about humankind's running potential. It took lifetimes for anyone to break the 4-minute mile, yet Bannister's title lasted only 46 days before someone else beat his time. And then that time was beaten, and beaten again. Once Bannister demonstrated that it was possible, others believed it was for themselves as well. He freed them from their limiting beliefs, arguably a greater legacy than his record that lasted only 46 days.
This whole concept of limiting beliefs. I mean, we can think back through history for all kinds of different things where, reality was thought to be one way. And in fact, they proved it another way. I mean, way back when they thought the world was flat, right? Obviously.
It's not.
You what?
It's not flat.
Okay, Flatlander. But I mean, there's those ideas, and then like this running in the 4-minute mile. Now it's not a 4-minute mile. How long did it say that the 4-minute mile was believed? How long was that? They said for
I think it said
46
46
days.
days.
Right.
no, I mean before that it was, let's see, all-time fastest miles, but at
10
4.1 minutes. Oh, and it said that the
For a
record
decade.
had been unbroken for nearly a decade. So for 10 years, nobody had broken that record of the 4.1 minute mile. And then as soon as he broke it, then everybody's breaking it. I mean, how crazy is that? It's just like all of a sudden, we change one little thing in our reality thought process mechanism, and then things just become possible that we didn't think was possible. I mean,
Wow.
It's crazy to think about that. And it makes me think about, how much am I limiting myself within my own life because of just beliefs that I have about whatever,
Yes.
I mean, we have beliefs about all kinds of different things. But I'll give a couple other examples too, is that I watched a couple different documentaries over the past year, and one of them was about a group of girls. It was like four girls, and there was like, I don't know, there's one other girl that got involved in some way, like halfway in the middle or whatever. But basically, it was these 4 girls who rowed across the Pacific Ocean. And just the idea of that. I mean, if you don't realize how big the Pacific Ocean is, it probably wouldn't seem like a whole lot. But when I was watching this, I mean, it took them like a month and a half or something to do it, but they did it. And it's crazy to think that that's even humanly possible to row across the Pacific Ocean. And then there was this other woman that she was like 70 something. And I guess when she was younger, maybe in her 30s or something along that, she was like a competitive swimmer, a long distance swimmer. And when she was younger, she had tried to swim from Cuba to Florida. I think it was Cuba. Cuba's the one that's straight down, right? And so she had tried to swim from Cuba to Florida, and everybody had said, no, it's impossible. Nobody can do it, blah, blah, blah. And so she had tried and failed because of weather patterns or whatever it was. And at that point, she just went on with her life and was doing other things. Well, when she retired from her, whatever her life was at the time, she was like in her 70s and she's sitting around with nothing better to do. And so she gets with her good friend and says, I want to train. I want to do it. This is my thing. I have to do this thing. And so like, she's like 70 something training to swim across, the ocean basically. And eventually she was able to do it. It took her like, I think it was on her fourth try at that age. She was determined that she was going to be able to do it. And she did. And it's crazy to think about what we are humanly capable of when we're all sitting around here in our homes thinking that, we can only do what we can do because we're limited by this, that, or the other. And yet there are people out there doing stuff that is just unthinkable in I don't know, the dedication or whatever that takes to do something like that is just, I can't even imagine what is driving a person, inside. Because I mean, I know what it takes to just keep myself motivated to do random stuff for myself, let alone trying to do some gargantuan undertaking like swimming from Cuba to Florida. I mean, that's just mind-boggling to me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was going to jump out and one, I think the person that you were talking about is Diana Nyad. I know her last name is Nyad, but I can't remember Diana's first name. But yeah, she's the one that did that. And yeah, the accomplishment at 70 to do that, along with the dangers and stuff that she could have faced in the waters, that she, that, I mean, I'm looking at my aunt and uncle and they're having a hard time getting around a lot of times. And then to see her at 70 going out and swimming and doing that, but that's something for us to all look at and consider. Plus, I wanted to bring up the point, go back to when we were kids and how we had all these crazy dreams of what we were going to do, what we were going to accomplish, and I know that in a lot of cases, like my grandparents and even maybe my parents a little bit when they were cohesive and would say, oh yeah, you can do anything you put your mind to. But then as you get older, the limitations are, how do I say this, are kind of placed on you because of other people's, and then we start to believe those limitations because we're listening to that rather than being like the Elon Musk or some of the people, or Diana Nyad as she got older, decided that no, I can do this. I'm going to do this. I want to do this. I need to do this. And we forget that we have that in ourselves, and that I believe God gave us those capabilities that if we really trust and believe, we can achieve far more than we ever think that we really can. And maybe this book was a book to remind me about the limiting beliefs, because I've been fighting with those a lot lately. And maybe I needed to be reminded again that I need to kind of push some of those out of the way and get back to where I believe that I can do whatever I set my mind to.
Well, it's hard to agree on reality when everybody's reality is different. We actually brought up that dress thing here on this one. I forget which book we were in when that dress came up, but I was the one that saw it wrong. So I don't know what my reality is or supposed to be. Like, if I'm looking at things completely different from other people. There's Jane. Welcome to the show. Good to have you. How do we, if you're looking at something and you're describing exactly what you see and it's completely different from what everybody else sees, then it's kind of hard to face reality if you're not quite sure what reality is. But it certainly is what we make of it. That's an absolute fact. I know that regardless of what we see, it is like he said in the very beginning. What was that quote by Thoreau? Let me find it. It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. Yeah. So that's very true. And if you haven't played with the dress experiment, just Google the dress and it'll pretty much come up. And you look at the dress and you see what colors you see. Different people see different things. So, but I thought it was, when I look at this talk about the runner making the quicker mile and stuff, I think about these ninja warrior shows on TV, and how they're just flying across and doing all kinds of superhuman things. They do all kinds of things. My parents love to watch that show and all kinds of shows like that. I don't know, I like them, but at the same time, I kind of beat myself up when I watch stuff like that because my body's not capable of that. And I know that that's a limiting belief on one hand, but then there's reality that I face every day. And people can say, that's just your belief, but it's a pretty strong one when you're living in that reality. So I do what I feel like are superhuman accomplishments um, every day, but that's just me getting through my day. like like you said, Samantha, I don't have to go try to fly across the trapeze thing to make a point, but I certainly catch myself every day, things that I say to myself, and I'll tell myself that's not true. That's just something you're saying in this moment or something that you're choosing to focus on, but that's not true. So it's a constant state of mental monitoring, I guess, in my reality.
It's interesting. You just brought out a good point though, because you're sitting there and you were talking about, how limiting beliefs and how our realities can kind of smash up against each other, and where our in our mind and in our brain we're saying I can do this, I can do this, but then your body turns around and tells you no, you can't. As I've gotten older, I've dealt with some of those, not to the degree of what you deal with, Catherine, and I feel for you on that because I don't know that, living with like that, sorry, that might be really hard for me. I mean, so kudos to you because, you amaze me all the time because of what you know, still do and push yourself to do. But it's interesting because I've had people, when I say, oh, this or oh, that, or my back or this or something, because of being rear-ended, about 30 years ago, you know, it has affected me as I've gotten older, but yet other people will say, it's almost like because they haven't had that happen, it's, you know, sometimes until you get to that stage and point, you don't realize that, yes, our bodies have physical limitations sometimes, but we can learn to work around them like you have and deal with them. But in other cases, that doesn't mean we still can't get over limiting beliefs and still do whatever we want to do in the realm of having the life that we dream or want. It's just us getting in the way of our own selves sometimes. And I know that's a big wall I continually hit, and I'm still trying to fight through and get through there. And but those, my reality sometimes comes back and slaps me up to the head and says, "Oh, you can't do that." And I'm trying to say, "But yes, I can. I want to. I but then it comes back again even harder, and sometimes it gets to be very hard to keep pushing forward too sometimes.
Yeah, I think our biggest kind of challenge with that is recognizing when is the difference between what is reality and what is limiting belief within our own lives, because I think that we get confused sometimes as we think this is reality, whatever we're experiencing in the moment, but yet at the same time, it may not be. It may be that we're just telling ourselves that this is our reality in the moment. And I mean, I like the whole concept of I never have enough time to get everything done, isn't that a limiting belief, really? I mean, I mean, there is a limit of time to some extent, but reality, it's like I found myself the other day. I was all in a big rush in the morning, and I was trying to get all these things done, and then my granddaughter, I got off the bus, and the guys got home, and it was, I don't know, 4:30 or something like that, and I had been telling myself for, I don't know, the last couple of weeks, oh, you just don't have time to do yoga, or you don't have time to do, your self-care things. And I looked at the clock, and it was 4:30, and I realized all of a sudden I didn't really have anything else I had to do. And at that time of day, normally it would be about, making dinner or doing that. And then I would come in and I'd hang out and I'd watch TV until it was time to go to bed or whatever. And I'm like, there's like 6 hours or 8 hours between now and when I have to go to bed, or when I would technically want to go to bed. I'm like, I have more time than I think that I do. I'm just thinking I have to do this thing, these exercises in the morning versus in the evening. And so I was like, all right, well, let's just change this around a little bit and change my way about doing the things. And now all of a sudden I have plenty of time. So I can still watch whatever show I want to, but I can do my yoga while I'm watching the show, or I can just not watch the show and read a book. I've been trying to really work on learning more about finance, and that's been kind of a huge thing for me. I mean, and I'm like, oh, I don't have time to read these books, but yeah, I do. I decide not to watch television as much. So just that concept.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Samantha, in terms of, I think I get, it's too easy to just sit down and watch TV. When you think about, well, I could be doing some things for my self-care. I could be going for a walk. I could be doing my back exercises, whatever. So sometimes I think we have to modify, rethink, what we programmed or we get used to doing. But I also think another point I wanted to make was that I really believe that if there's a need and you put that desire out in the universe, that it's possible for a new modality or a new drug or a new physical therapy exercise that will help you in whatever you're dealing with in terms of pain and so forth. I believe it's possible for that to come into your life. I feel like you should never be hopeless. And that again is self-limiting beliefs that, oh no, I'm always going to be in this kind of pain. Well, maybe not, so, and that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I hate to say this, and don't get me wrong, I do love certain shows or movies every now and then that I watch, but I think the TV has been one of the biggest disservices that we've ever come up with in a lot of ways. Because back in the day, before TV really kind of was big, you went to the movies and you watched the movie for that specific time. You made time for that, but you didn't have it constantly going in your house. You actually went and saw a show or, a theater play or something. You went, you took that time and you planned for it, and you made your time and planned for it around, oh, we want to go see this, so we're going to take this day, carve it out, put it in there, but then when we come back, we go back to the normal life, you know, like back in the radio days when they would, sit and listen to certain radio programs. But sometimes you might be listening to the radio program, but you were still doing stuff around the house. So that was one of my things that my grandmother would do. She'd, turn the TV on, but sometimes she would get busy and do other things with it on, listening, because she grew up a little bit more, around radio and stuff and things like that too, I think. And so with that, I think because I'll get home and I'll turn on the TV, and next thing I know, I'm sucked in, and then I'm sitting down and I'm watching it because I don't, and instead, and I have to force myself to get up. Okay, I can go do something. I've seen probably a lot of these shows time and time again. I probably know them pretty much when I watch them. We go, oh yeah, okay, they're going to do this next. So why can't I just listen to it, even if it's just there for whatever, to feel, whatever. And I can do other things in those times, or I can turn it off and go, like you said, Jane, put in other things that will help for my benefit and for me, and I know, Catherine, you probably don't really watch a lot of TV because you really don't like to do those type of things. You tend to want to stay busy, focused, and, in the moments of whatever you're doing. And I think maybe if we were all more like that, that would help with our limiting beliefs too, because then we would get past that, that mode of that we've all been conditioned to. Okay, come home, fix dinner, do what little bit, and then plan ourselves in front of the TV for the next 2 to 3 hours, and then go to bed. That has not done a lot of help for our physical, bodies either, mine included. So it's funny how a lot of things kind of come in and overtake and then help expand the limiting beliefs when, it is definitely up to us to take them over and say, no, I'm going to do this. Or I'm going to, or like you in the case of you, Samantha, where you just made some changes and you're like, oh, now I have more time in my day, just making the appropriate changes too. Because I have that problem. It's like, I never have enough time to get, I've got a stack of papers on my inbox here. I've got papers to file. I've got things to do, but half the time I come home and I'm like, okay, I've been working all day. I don't want to come home and do more work. But yet, if I just learn how to maybe when I have free time, just put a little stuff away here and there, or make piles and then say, okay, this day I'll do that pile. There's got to be things I can do to help change my mindset of when I come in and it's like, oh, I got all that, that's too much and I don't want to mess with it, but it needs to be messed with and it needs to be taken care of.
And don't you feel better when you've taken care of things? Maybe if it's even just, one or two things on your to-do list, or maybe it's 4 or 5. And then you really feel like you've accomplished something, and it really is about making those choices. Or if you need a little energy, take a walk first or drink some coffee, or yeah. I'm definitely a person that feels like you're working hard all day and you come home, you want to just relax too. But why choose TV? Why not meditation or reading? Or, it is all about choices. And with me, it's trying to make better choices for myself. Choices that are more life affirming, more enhancing for my life. So I'm complete.
Yeah, for sure. I know it. Well, like last year we bought this property. It's going on 2 years now. And since we've had it, it has seemed overwhelming with all of the outdoor work that needs to be done. And I, like last year, I was like, all right, I really got to get on this. You know, we got weeds growing here and weeds growing there, and we got all these flower beds around that and for me, I've never been a big person. I've never been into like getting in the flower bed and digging out weeds. That's been something that has always been like, I really don't want to do that. And but at the same time, I'm like, well, it needs to get done. I can't just not do it. It'll just grow up and be obnoxious. So I'm like, all right, well, I had to just tell myself, okay, you don't have to do it all in one day. This isn't something that all has to be done at once. You can do it over time. And so I just started spending 20 minutes, every morning. I would get, the kids off onto the bus, and then I would start doing it. And I did a little bit at a time, and then it was done. And I'm like, well, look at that. It wasn't that big a deal after all, and then we've got these like bricks that are all the way around our patio in the back that are, I don't know, the previous people did this like stones landscaping, and then they had bricks around it, and then there's grass, and it's like trying to maintain all that was just such a pain. I'm like, I'm going to take those bricks out, so I've been working on taking all those bricks out. So I'd take out, like 10 of them a day, because they're like the big chunky 10-pound ones or whatever. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do a few a day. And so I started working on that, and I've got that project about halfway done. I still have the other half of that area to do this year. But when I first looked at it, it's like overwhelming with the amount of effort that knowing what you have to do and looking at everything that needs to get done. And somehow or another, I always seem to have it in my head that it just all needs to be done like right now, and instead of saying to myself, well, you have all the time in the world, just start working on it and eventually you'll have it done, and sure, you may have to start at the beginning again, but that's okay too. So I don't know. That's been a big part of me, just reminding myself, what is that saying of, how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, kind of thing. I don't know where that saying came from. It seems conky, but I'm like, whatever, it makes sense in a lot of ways. It's just a little bit at a time, and eventually you'll get there. And I feel like even with my office work and all that we have going on with the company and everything, and I get overwhelmed with that sometimes, I just have to keep reminding myself, just a little bit at a time and just chunk it away, a little bit of chunks every day, and eventually it'll get done, and you don't have to stress about it as much. We make such a big deal out of everything, don't we? We just make things out to be such a big thing, when in reality it just is a little bit at a time. So at least I do. I know I make all kinds of stuff into a bigger mess than it really is, but that's me.
And I really like, I don't have a big property like you do. I have a fairly small house, but I do have a garden and a lawn and that needs maintenance. But I look at it as exercise. I look at it as, nurturing the plants, and I like being around the plants because I think there's an energy that comes from the plants. It's very harmonious and comforting for me, So, and I bending over, because I've had back issues for years. So, but I mean, I'm good because my physical therapist gave me exercises that I do faithfully. So I'm really not in any pain now, but that's all part of my exercise, out there doing like yogic moves and everything, stretches and just enjoying it. But yeah, if it was a big area, that would be daunting. And you're just getting used to doing that. So yeah, but just try to look at it in piecemeal, and try to I always try to look at something from, what good can come out of what I'm complaining about having to do, or maybe I'll learn something from this particular situation, so that's what I do. And I think it's helpful. That's why I suggest that. It's, try to look at it from a point of view in your reality where it's something that is helpful and something to be grateful for. I mean, you have a business, and yes, you have a lot you have to do to keep that going, and little details and filing and da 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 da. But you have a business and you have income coming in. And so that's something to be grateful for. So I'm done.
Well, that busy work is a great place to start when you're ever looking to effectively make a change, or change your activity and energy, for sure, just to get something going, because there's that discomfort of when you think about it, having to do a chore, and then there's the discomfort of getting into actually doing it. You don't start feeling good about it until you're like getting something done. Like Dan was saying, once you have stuff cleaned off, once you had gotten a few things done, it was nice to come back in the room and see it clean and enjoy it. We have that discomfort that is our perception, and that's kind of our reality. But I like what you all great points about, making the change to to have a different to have a different outcome. Um, it's it is important to kind of get into that, um, build that skill, I should say, instead, just to kind of be looking at building that skill of recognizing the true limiting beliefs, or real limiting things that are really limiting, and things that aren't actually limiting. Because I mean, it's just my opinion, limiting expectations can, because of your, certain beliefs, can kind of be a routine that we get into, and may be justifiable in certain areas of our life, but that can bleed into other aspects of our lives as well. And if you haven't built that skill of recognizing it and being willing to take on that discomfort and make some changes, then we may not recognize that that's what's happening, and we kind of get stuck in the routine, the rut of it all, I guess. But yeah, great thoughts, guys. Thanks.
I just had a thought that flashed through my mind, and maybe this is how I can start looking at it, is going back to what I had said in the chat about, just those three things that I did in my bedroom, because I tend to come home and tend to, put stuff on my dresser, and then I had a bunch of books and stuff and things, on my nightstands, and I just, and both spots got very cluttered after a while, and every time I looked at it, it just made me like, but when I got into it and cleaned them off, once I got done, the feeling I have, and I have that feeling every time I walk in my room right now, because so far I haven't let them get cluttered or anything, and I don't want to, but maybe part of what I need to do for me, and I'm just thinking this for me, is focus on the result and the feeling I'm going to have, that it will be far greater of a feeling than the feeling of looking at it and just being disgusted and not having anything done, and then getting mad at myself because I'm not taking the time to sit down and get it done. Even if I do 10 minutes a day, even 10 minutes a day, I would get 10 minutes worth of something done and more of it out of my way. And eventually it would get caught up, like you said, Samantha, and oh, wow, okay, it wasn't so bad. And focus on the result of what, I've never made that switch to focus on the result of what I want and how I feel. I've always let the thought of, oh, I got to do that, I got to go through all that, and I don't want to go through all that, and there's so much. But if we break it down, it goes back to how when I was helping with my nieces and nephews, whenever I do something, tell them, break it down to little chunks of what you can do, learn to build on that, and then focus on doing more and more as you get bigger, as you get older, as you can take on more responsibility. Well, why do we stop doing that? Why do we always think that, I think as adults, we to overcomplicate everything. And and what do we do to ourselves? We sabotage ourselves more time, most of the time, and we're frustrated. And then that gets thrown out at the rest of the world, and then they feel it, and then it's just that compounding effect. And going back to one of our books, or being the ripple and being love, and well, let me love myself enough first to take 10 minutes a day to do this and get some of this done, to where once it's done, wow, and I can be putting back out that energy, kind of like what you were saying, Jane. Look at it for what it can do on the positive side, not the negative side.
But where I have a problem is, I'm sorry, did I interrupt somebody? Okay, I'll be brief. Is I remember when I was working, it's still the same. And one of the biggest problems I have is procrastination, in terms of not necessarily the everyday stuff, but maybe there's one thing or two things in particular you really just don't like doing, whatever it is. And you just put it off and put it off. It's not the outside stuff, for me, but it's probably more like filing and organization. I just hate that stuff. And so I put it off until, it becomes a little overwhelming and uncomfortable. But and I'm trying to do better with that. And so I have to listen to myself, I guess. And I'm trying to be more aware of that I need to look at it from a more positive. What positive thing can come out of this? Well, we know I'll feel better when I finish that. But yet at the same time, sometimes you just let it go. It's like, well, okay, I don't have to clean up all my bad habits. Maybe I'll just keep this one. I'm done.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we don't have to work on everything all at the same time. That's that whole concept of, we allow ourselves to feel overwhelmed because we think we have so much to do. And that can apply to all aspects of our life, whether it's actual physical things that we need to do, or whether it is making changes in our own, whatever we want to change about ourselves, whether that's our diet or our exercise or our attitude or our, personal beliefs or whatever it is. That's, when we look at all of it, we're like, oh, geez, I'm never going to achieve what it is I ultimately want to achieve. But we just have to remember we don't have to do it all at once. And that's a powerful thing, I think, because I mean, how much of the time do we get overwhelmed by just the gargantuan effort of something? It's like right now I have this, my mom is, we're trying to get her moved up to Indiana from Florida. And, there's just all these different things that have to get done in order to make that happen. And it just seems like a huge effort to do. And yet, each day I'm just like doing little things here. I got to work on this first, or I've got to work on that, or I've got to, whatever. And when I tell myself I don't have to do it all in one day, it's not nearly as overwhelming. And so that's a big part of it. But one thing I was thinking about when everybody was talking is I kind of had a kind of a realization is that when we're stuck in our limiting beliefs, that's kind of like a low energy, or, it's like a telling yourself you can't do it, or, you're depressed, or you have, I don't know, what's another thing, like, doubt, self-doubt, those kinds of things. We think we can't do something, so we're caught in this kind of lower energy aspect. But then when we start working on the thing, and we start to feel a sense of accomplishment from doing that, it brings our energy level up, our positiveness up, our just overall being of energy up. It's like when I'm looking at all this outside stuff that needs to be done, I'm just like, oh, this and that and the other with it. And that makes me feel blah when thinking that way. And yet when I just get out there and I start working on it, then I feel energized by it. It's so crazy that we allow ourselves to just kind of wallow in this self blah blah, when if we would just recognize, okay, it's really not that big a deal. We're making it a bigger deal than it needs to be. We just need to start taking little chunks out of it. Then we feel great when we do. So it's funny how we do that to ourselves.
I have my new little coinage term now for nowadays. Oh, I'm just in the self blah blah.
Blah, blah.
If
I
I'm
love
focusing,
that.
Go
Go
on.
ahead, Jason. Sorry.
if we're focusing on the big pile of papers on the desk or the things that we want to accomplish, then again, we're not in the moment. It's just another distraction tool that we're using to not be in the present. And I like to set intentions rather than tell myself I need to do this or I need to do that, and just stay in the moment. I guess maybe I'll take care of it when it comes up. But I know that back to the beginning, we do create what we think. So in some ways, the dreamers that come up with all of these ideas, they're so important to society because so many people don't dream. They just do. And without the dreamers, then we don't advance our society. So we need those people that believe the impossible is possible for the rest of us, I guess, to see it. I think that's the same thing with Middle Eastern religions, the gurus, and you watch how they've mastered their emotions and they stay in the moment, and they have that life, that quietness, that peace of mind that eluded me for so long. But I really like this. I really like this discussion, and I appreciate being here today with you guys. Thank you so much.
Oh, very good. I know that a tool that in my spiritual community that we use a lot is visioning and visioning boards. And you don't even have to go that far. They love, I mean, I've been a part of this too, where you get magazines and you look for pictures and you arrange it, and it's like a creation. You're pulling together, things that you want to accomplish and how you see your life going.
I'm a
And
mosaic.
a mosaic, right. And a lot of people, they'll put it somewhere prominent in their house, and it keeps them on track. Like, yeah, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. And I think it's valuable. You can do other things too, like keep a journal or a gratitude list, or ways to keep you present. I know when I have a ton of things to do, well, I always have an ongoing to-do list. So the gratification there comes when I scratch off something that I've done, and I can look and say, oh yeah, I did this and this and this. Yay. That helps.
I do not have a to-do list, and just because of my reality, I've had to learn how to love and accept myself when I can't do anything on that list. And it doesn't matter how bad I want to, like, it's just not going to happen. So I don't have lists, but I do set intentions, and I do get a lot of things accomplished in a day without a list. And I guess I have maybe a mental, I try to give myself kudos for accomplishing things which would be the equivalent of you marking something off your list. But I had to, God kind of forced, God or whoever's out there or whatever, kind of pushed me into a place where I had to give up doing and finding my sense of self and accomplishment from doing and just actually being. And all of the gratitude and gifts and magic that comes from just being. And sometimes you can get lost in that too, because our reality requires us to do things, some things, but some days that whole, my whole imaginary list or whatever might just be making it to the bathroom or brushing my teeth or, getting my hair combed or whatever. Other days, maybe I can get a whole lot more accomplished. But I do find absolutely that we tend to create these huge mountains. I do it with taxes. Taxes is my antichrist or whatever. Like I just hate doing taxes, and even saying the word or thinking the word puts me in a stressful. I can feel my body tightening up, and it's because I've owed taxes for years. I've been paying them for years, and my bill doesn't change all that much because of their fees and stuff. But so it's an ongoing thorn in my foot. But I will turn it into this huge unaccomplishable thing, and then once I actually, as the date gets closer and closer and I have to force myself to do it, once I actually do it, like it's not a big deal. And I every year I even go, wow, like why did I stress myself out so much over that? And why does even the word of it like stress me out? Because once I just do it, it's simple and it's done. And I even for like half of a second, I think, gosh, this is something that I could do as work if I wanted to. And then I'm immediately like, no, you couldn't because numbers, even though the universe is running on it, I haven't caught up with the ability to work with numbers yet. But we make life a lot more difficult. And I when I'm working with my grandkids or something, it's so easy to teach them how to recognize that, but then we don't recognize it within ourselves a lot of times. We really do have to treat ourselves like we're still 5 and then it'll all work out. We'll have enough patience with ourselves. We have to have self-love, you guys. Why is it always the self-love things that get knocked off the list when you have too much to do or you don't have enough time? Why is it always the self-love stuff? Why? I put something up on my page the other day about if I asked you to list all the things you'd love, how long would it take you to list yourself? And for most people, that wouldn't even make it on the list. It wouldn't even make it on the list, loving yourself. And that's, I think, what God has been, pushing me to through different injuries and conditions and things, is pushing me to the point where that's really all I could do was learn how to love myself regardless. And I think learning how to love yourself and other people regardless is a huge thing, regardless of what they can do or what they have done or how differently they see or think things than you do. Because I see that damn dress as gold and white, you guys. I swear to God.
That's so funny. I don't even know what dress you're talking about, but I mean, I know what they were talking about in the book, but I'd never even seen that. I don't follow stuff on social media that much, so it didn't even come across to me. But I'm glad that you brought that up about yourself and other people, because again, that's another limiting belief, is that we can't love someone unless, or we can't love them because, or we can't love ourselves unless or because, and those are huge limiting beliefs that we run into all the time, and it's like I have a person in my life that, I've kind of realized I can't have the relationship that I used to have with them, but that doesn't mean I don't love them anymore. I mean, I totally have love for that person, and I send that person love every single day, because I know that what they're going through is a huge struggle for them. I can't be involved in it, and that's what the reality is for me, is that just to be involved in that is it's not something that I want to do, and because it's just so painful. But I do still keep sending love, and I know that it's going to work out for whatever way. I mean, that person's on a spiritual journey that I can't even fathom right now, and that's something that they have to go through for themselves. I can't fix it for them. It's like, and then I think that's something that we have to recognize about with a lot of people in our lives, is that, when we come across a person who is really angry or self, deprecating, or just really struggling in their life, or negative about everything, or whatever it is that we just have to recognize that they're just in a different place in their life and in their spiritual journey than what we are. And it's okay, because they need to go through it, and we can't fix it for them. It's not for us to fix it for them. They need that spiritual journey, that struggle, in order to, continue on whatever path it is that has been placed before them, for them to learn whatever it is they need to learn. And I feel like a lot of times we think we need to fix things for other people, and we want to, particularly if it's a close family member or close friend, is that we want to help the pain go away, and we think we know how to make it better for the other person if they would just do this one thing, but the reality is that that's them and their journey, and they may have to accomplish it in a whole different way than maybe that we would. And that can be kind of a slap in the face, of, if you will, because we think we know everything, right? I mean, not entirely, but I mean, we see it from our perspective, and that is reality for us, and yet that reality for the other person may be completely different, and we need to just be okay with that. That's a huge thing. Just be okay with that. So that's all I've got. We're a little past the top of the hour, so if everybody just wants to share a final thought on this, the lens of belief, or what was the title of this section, was just facing reality through the lens of limiting beliefs, and what that might mean for us, and then we can wrap up for today.
Well, I was going to jump out and go back to kind of in the beginning when, I think it was you were first pointing out, I guess kind of perspectives, and I think Catherine a little bit too, about, how we view things from our reality. And a good case was that dress, but also another good case in point, and I think it drives it home even more, is when you see an accident and the police are asking the different people what happened, and yet most people pretty much see the same accident, but it's just from their viewpoint, which is their reality because of where they're standing or sitting or in their car or wherever. And you might get similar details enough to corroborate everything, but you're still going to have all the little dissimilarities because of the perception and the reality of where they were at. And that's something I think we forget about our lives is, we're from, because me and one friend, we go on and on over and over and over between how my friend will perceive things and see things and tell me things that are supposedly wrong in my life, and then I'm trying to come back and say, yeah, but that's not the case, because I'm looking at it this way, and in my head I'm perceiving this just because you think that does not necessarily, and but we have this, we we don't we actually argue at times. Well, I mean, voices will get louder and louder, and it's like, and it frustrates the, and that's why I'm limiting my time with him now, because it just, I get nowhere, because, and sometimes that's the point, is our points of view and our realities are so what they are, that I can do my best to put myself in somebody else's point of view or their position, but I'm not going to get the full picture, and I'm probably not going to fully understand everything because of that. I can only suppose or draw from what I think or based on what they're telling me. But going back to my reality, I'm in my reality and what I'm dealing with and what and that's where I've got to come from. And that's where I've got to make my decisions, my choices, my taking the limiting beliefs out of the way when I can, and dealing with them, and taking steps, in other areas where take bites out of things too. So, I mean, that's, how I look at it all. That's my last little.
Well, and I'll share mine. I just something that I would add would be that, and I know fully well that oftentimes get stuck, just as Dan had said, with trying to understand somebody else's point of view or their situation, and most times I just give it up to God and say, help me to see this differently, and when you ask for that, oftentimes, you're maybe not in the way you think you're going to receive that extra perception, but you will receive it. Some little bit of information, little download, or just something else that comes up and helps you, and you have an aha moment, like, yeah, I guess that helps me understand this person or this situation that I'm struggling with. So that's what I do. I ask for help. So, and this is a really great group. I really feel lucky to have found you guys. And I mean, talk about so much wisdom. I've spent years coming to understand a lot of the topics that you bring out. So I feel like I'm totally in the right place. So thank you.
Kenji, I saw you wrote something. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, I mean, my last thought would be, I'm 62. I turned 62 on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think. But I've come to the conclusion, not because I'm bright or, well, I am bright, so I'm not gonna downgrade myself. But I came to the conclusion that you do have to see it first. You have to believe that it's possible. If you don't believe it's possible, then you will never see it, ever. So, the old saying is, you must see it to believe it, or it's not true. It didn't work for me. I'm gonna first see it, as not see it, but first believe it. It's possible. You know what? It's possible that I don't know it all. It's possible that there might be more out there than I see. It's possible that my reality may not be the way it really is. So I don't know. I think those people that created those things, I mean, think about all these things in life that we have. Somebody sat there and in their meditations, they dreamed of a pyramid, or they dreamed of a bicycle, or they dreamed of a car, and they made it before anybody else even saw it. They saw it, and they made it come true, because once you see it, if you see it and you believe it, I think you can make it happen. It's a weird thing about being a human being, but what we think we become. Thank you.
True. Yep.
Well, I know you guys are tired of hearing about her, but when it comes to the subject of reality, Byron Katie slams into my mind every time when I'm having difficulty dealing with a reality, or changing my perception about a reality. I go to the work through Byron Katie, and I don't have to write it down in a notebook or anything. I can just do it in my head really quick. Is that true? Is that really, really true? How do you feel when you think that? And how do you feel when you don't think that? I mean, that's basically what it breaks down to. So, when I'm thinking something about my reality that is making me unhappy, whether that be something in relationship to myself or somebody else, I go through those questions. And if I get to the last one and it's like, well, how do you feel when you think that about that situation? And I feel like shit, then I know that I have to shift that perception to another way. And usually, I mean, nobody sees anything just with their eyes. They see it through a veil of their emotions, of their experiences, of their traumas, of everything that they have lived through in their experience. That's what they see it through. They don't just see an accident. It's not just a difference of angle of, oh, I saw it from this perspective and you saw it from this angle. No, they're not just seeing it with their eyes, they're seeing it with everything they've experienced in their life. And it happens that way with everything that we look at or see. And so what I do, especially when it's somebody else, is I just try to go back to, it sounds silly, but go back to us talking when we're 5-year-olds instead of when we're 60-year-olds. And usually I can figure out why somebody is responding in the way that they are. It's very easy for me to see another person's point of view. I don't know that I've ever been black and white in my entire life. Like everything has been gray because I just have my foot in both worlds for one thing, and then as if this world wasn't enough. But it's just, we come here to learn how to love. And so when I'm in a when I'm in a state of being where I'm feeling unloving, I try to guide myself back to the love. However, whatever course that takes, whether that's just trying to see it from their point of view, or even if I just vehemently disagree with their point of view, I can still love them. They don't have to believe what I believe so that they can earn my love. That's kind of how I was raised. That's a self-limiting belief that I was raised with, is you have to think this way, you have to do these things, you have to look a certain way, act a certain way to earn love. And if you don't do all those things, then you don't get love. So
Right.
I have to realize that's how I'm programmed. And I think that's how a lot of people are programmed. And but if we can just get past that and say, yes, you can have an entirely opposite opinion to mine, and I can still love you, if nothing else, because you were brave enough as a soul to come to this planet. That is enough to earn anybody love and admiration, because there's so much here that is challenging to deal with, and yet we come and we persevere. I mean, God knows, look at all the wonderful things humankind has done. And I know we've done a lot of bad things too, but we have to stay focused on what we want. So I try to stay focused on the good stuff. I love you guys, and I hope everybody has an awesome week.
Same. Bye, everybody.
And Jane, you are definitely in the right place, honey.
Thank you. Thank you. And hope to see you all next week. Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. Okay. Have a good week.
Yep,
Bye.
yep. Awesome, guys. Thank you
Okay.
so
Thanks,
much for
Diane.
sharing
All right.
today. I appreciate you so much. And for those of you who are watching this as a recording, if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. You can find us on Facebook. Just search for Mindset Mastery Collective. If you're watching this as a recording on YouTube, you'll find all the links below the video to find us and figure out, how to participate. So we'd love to have you. With that, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.
Sounds great. Bye-bye.